Guys who did something stupid for a girl, what did you do? In high school, this girl who I was close friends with, but also had a not so secret crush on, told me once how she really loved those huge 7-foot tall teddy bears. So I told her one day I'd buy her one and she laughed, writing it off as a joke. Fast forward like 3 years later when we're going to the same local college and reconnected after slowly drifting apart after high school. She tells me one day that she's sick, so I do the only logical thing. Drive to Costco after class, drop $200 on that huge teddy bear, stuff it into the backseat of my tiny Honda Civic, drive incredibly dangerously since the bear is taking up my entire rear window, then show up at her front door. She says it feels too weird and romantic given our past, me having that not so secret crush back in high school and her having to tell me multiple times that we're better off as friends. So I do the whole drive back and return the bear. Grew my hair long because she asked me to. She stopped going out with me. I kept growing it and wasn't successful with women until I got it cut. I met a girl and fell head over heels for her. She lived in another state. Nevertheless, we started a long distance relationship. Coincidentally, she had just lost her job, so I sent her money every week, almost my entire check, and I drove out to see her every chance I got. That autumn I found out she had a boyfriend and was just using me to pay her rent. I was at work when I found out and just left. I had to confront her about deceiving me. I drove 3 hours to her house and by the time I got there, I knew it didn't matter. She wasn't the person I thought she was. I gave her everything I had for nothing in return. Instead of being mad or saying something that would win her back, I told her that she's a horrible person for lying to me, that I hope someday someone hurts her as much as she did me. The next day I went back to my job to see if I could get my last paycheck. My boss took me into his office and laid into me about being irresponsible and failing the company. While I was sitting there, I could barely hear him as all I could think about was how stupid I was, and suddenly, I started crying. I mean torrents of tears, ugly cry. I must have bawled for a good 10 minutes. My boss stopped berating me and silently waited for me to get control of myself. Then, in a very sympathetic tone, he told me it's okay. I was in love like that once. We all do stupid things in the name of love. Try to learn from this. It may seem like the world is ending, but it's not. You'll be okay. Then he sent me back to work stating that we never have to talk about it again. He was a good boss and a great guy. First girl I asked out, I left a chalk outline of a body on her driveway, along with a, clearly fake, police report indicating I was dying to go out with her. Yeah. I still cringe at the memory. This girl I really liked ages ago didn't really know who I was. I gave her a Wii for her birthday and it was probably the creepiest thing ever to her. I thought it was a surefire way to win her heart, get married and all that Disney crap. 15-year-old me was stupid. Was in a long distance relationship with her, flew back for Valentine's Day, turned up with flowers, to see her through the window, sitting on the lap of her ex. I was so completely obsessed with a girl that I disregarded my own well-being and threw away any chance I had for success. We dated for 4 years while we were in school for architecture. Towards the end of our degrees, she started having trouble with her thesis project and asked for help. In what can only be described as a lengthy period of insanity, I decided to stop working on my own projects and focus entirely on her thesis. I did everything for her: designs, drawings, models, and write-ups. Her presentation went flawlessly and she had the top grades in her class. As a result of staying up all night for weeks at a time and repeatedly delaying my own work, I failed most of my classes and dropped out of school. She was grateful and begged me to help her work on her master's degree as well. No problem. Got her straight A's and a brand new diploma to add to her collection. She dumped me on graduation day and immediately began a relationship with someone who understood the importance of self-respect. I'm not even mad, it was entirely my own doing, and I learned some valuable lessons. Really expensive though, cost me about 8 years of my life playing catch up. Never put a school relationship before your own success. I got on my bicycle and rode 18 miles to see my GF. My girlfriend lived 28 miles away. If you haven't done the math yet, my tire popped at 18 miles. A girl was leading me on, but also being obvious about it. I was stupidly believing I could change her ways and get her to actually date me. She had revealed she always wanted a giant teddy bear. So for her birthday Valentine's Day I bought a giant bear costume from Amazon and like 90 roses. The idea was one for every day I had no her. Creepy and cringy af looking back. Anyhow, she called me drunk the night before and screamed mean shit at me and I finally broke down and told myself she was a shitty person. Because she always was terrible to me and I let myself think I could change that because I was desperate to not be alone. In the end I created a sign that said free bear hugs and roses for Valentine's and wore the bear suit onto our college campus on Valentine's Day to give away all the roses. It made so many people happy that it was one of the best things I've ever done. So many hugs and girls were crying because they didn't have to feel so alone on a shitty commercialized holiday. It was cool. Plus the football players all took a flower and hugged me, which was surprisingly wholesome. This is so awesome. What an amazing way to turn your personal pain and disappointment into a beautiful moment for 90 other people. Probably more given that many of the people who saw it would have smiled and gone about their day happier just for watching it. Do I have to pick just one thing? I had a good job where I could work 40 hours a week and go to school, so I had a stupid amount of money and parents who for some reason didn't pay any attention to what I was doing with it. As a senior, I was dating a sophomore, and her mom told her it's not your prom, so I'm not paying for a dress and everything. I ended up spending well over $1,500 on dress, and hair, and makeup, and shoes, and manicure, and a photo shoot, and a custom made blue topaz pendant with a massive stone I handpicked to perfectly match the dress she would be wearing. Last time I saw that stone it was on a chain around her best friend's neck after we broke up. Girlfriend of several months called me up and was sobbing incoherently. All I could make out between the gulps of breath and wailing was died. Her grandmother was not well, and she and I would go visit her from time to time, so I assumed it was her grandmother that died. I threw my Xbox controller mid-game at my roommate, leapt to my feet and said, "Hey man, I have to go." Once I arrived at her apartment and calmed her down, I managed to ascertain that it was not her grandmother who had died, but her goldfish. She said she wanted to have a funeral for her fish. I was annoyed, but determined to compassionately help her cope because obviously that goldfish mattered to her. I recommended she go get cleaned up and take a hot shower to relax, and while she was in there I called up a couple of my friends, and some of her girlfriends. I had a buddy of mine go to the park at the small campus lake and dig a fish grave. I had her girlfriends take her out to lunch. Then I got the floating carcass out of the bowl, wrapped it in toilet paper, and placed it in a jewelry box coffin. We went and had a full fish funeral with music and people speaking and Psalm 23 by the lake. Afterward, when we were back at her apartment, she said, "I don't know why you did that, we should have just flushed it." We broke up a few weeks later. When I was around 15 I got really frustrated that a girl that I had known for a while did not want to like me and get together. I was texting her in the middle of class and the teacher made a comment about it and she made me hand over the phone and something snapped in me. I threw a chair across the room, hit my desk, which broke my hand, and I broke down crying. I thought about it today and it still makes me cringe sometimes. And I apologized to my teacher and everyone included. The girl is now one of my closest friends. Cool. One I can answer. I had a breakup that really hurt me emotionally. Another girl comes along to manipulate me. We were together for a while when I decided to enlist to the military. She was upset, so she convinced me to get an apartment with her that she could live in while I'm gone. Fast forward to 3 months after I left, I found out she opened a credit card in my name, $1,000, repeatedly cheated on me and trashed the apartment. This was almost 3 years ago and I'm still dealing with the repercussions. I took her to a ChickFilA rally to protest their anti-LGBTQIA+ policies. Unfortunately it was a windy afternoon and when I opened my passenger door to let her back inside my car, the breeze caught her ChickFilA wrapper that had been hidden under my seat. Foiled by my love of their chicken yet again. I drive long haul bus routes. Some dude shows up without luggage one day to travel across the state. Weird. I ask him, no bags, no man. I'm going to prison. Have to report for sentencing tomorrow. Oh, yikes. Don't mean to pry. What for? Or I totally meant to pry because I wasn't about to have a murderer or some psycho rapist on my bus for 9 hours. Oh. I'm going to prison for this girl. She got caught with a bunch of drugs in her car. I was riding with her. It was gonna be her third strike, so I told the cops they were mine. I love her, man. She'll be waiting for me when I get out, she says. Bought her everything and trusted her. I had an ex that constantly made me feel like her life was falling apart no matter how much she tried to get ahead. She would ask for things like cars, usually cheap ones, so I didn't mind. Well, 3 cars later the amount was piling up. After the cars I was helping her pay rent because she would tell me someone stole from her or something like that. She never could keep a job and I believe her when she would say all the bosses were jerks or sexually harassing her, so she was quitting. After a point I was paying for her cable bill while working an average of 65 hours a week to cover everything. She drove a decent Mitsubishi Eclipse while I drove a rundown Neon. I trusted everything she said, and while I was working every hour I wasn't sleeping, she was having sex with every guy she could so they could provide for her as well. I never knew because I didn't listen to anyone who said anything. When she got with my one close friend behind my back I managed to see who she was and we went separate ways.